Hello and welcome back to the Business Growth Club. This is your weekly edition from us, and in this week's edition we're going to be continuing our journey of looking at how you can profile more precisely your target market. Now, you remember in the first video in this series I looked at the Mosaic template, Mosaic profiling tool from Experian. That was the tool that categorized everybody in society, all 62 million of us, into 11 basic groups, and it described their behavior, so what the group looked like, how affluent they were, what their concerns were, how they behaved, crucially what sort of advertising and promotions and marketing they respond to, whether it's online or if it's still newspaper, what their disposable income is, all of those sorts of questions. And I said, if you're a business that sells to consumers, at the end of that video you should come to a view as to which one of these groups, or more than one of those groups, maybe it's 2 or 3 of those groups, would be most likely to be customers for your business, i.e. they would be your target market. Now obviously for businesses that sell to other businesses, the process isn't entirely applicable. However, as I said in last week's video, I would encourage you to watch this series because the lessons from this series very much apply to the other side, which we'll look at later on, which will be how businesses can target particular businesses. So a business selling to a business can do that. So I would encourage you to listen to it whether you're business to consumer or business to business. But this video is looking at how we target consumers, so the general population. So in summary, we looked at how you could profile in the Mosaic and you could say which of the groups was your target group. And I said this week we would look at how we contact those people. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do in this video. Now, in order to do that, we need to use a targeting tool. There's many of these around, but I recommend and use a company called Selectabase. Below this video, you'll see a link to Selectabase. So if you'd like to, after this video, you can go over and register with them and start using their services. As always, I'm not in any way financially linked to that company. I'm not being paid for any endorsements. I'm recommending them because I personally use them. There's lots of other tools out there, but I happen to find them the most cost effective and the most productive. But you could find your own, but it's a profiling tool. And today I'm going to pop over to the internet and show you how you would, number one, profile the Mosaic group so you could target them in your area, but then actually look at some of the other tools. Now, some of this might not make perfect sense to you until we get to the end of the video and you see the outcome and you see the numbers involved. But I'm going to pop over to the internet now and show you this targeting tool. So here I am on the internet now at this website, selectabase.co.uk. That's the one that I use. You'll have to register for this website if you want to use it, but you'll be able to see now as I go through this video how you could profile your target market. So first link is to click on consumer lists. I'm not expecting you to be able to see everything in great detail because I appreciate this is a small video and you might not fully follow what I'm doing. You don't really need to. If you want to use Selectabase, it's very easy once you start to use it. It's quite intuitive. However, if you struggle, we'll help you and I'll kind of guide you through the process, but it's very simple. I merely want you to look at the process, so don't worry if you can't see exactly all the links I'm clicking on. But I've just clicked on consumer link and let's get started. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm building a target list because we've decided that one or more of these Mosaic groups are the groups that we want to target, one of those different social groups. And in this video we're looking at direct contact. So direct contact could be essentially contacting them either via email, via telephone, or probably most effectively via the post. So our first step is to look at the area that we want to target, because it's all well and good knowing we want social group 1, 2 and 3, but if we can't reach them, we just end up with a big list of everybody in the country. So you click on select postcode, and as I do this you'll probably start to see the level of profiling that you can do. Now, first one, which is probably the easiest, is you can do a postcode radius. So you say all the postcodes within a 30-mile radius, a 5-mile radius, a 1-mile radius, whatever you're happy with of a postcode. So we're going to go AB10. I don't know what that is. That's probably Aberdeen somewhere, isn't it? So AB10, obviously wherever you are, if you own a business in, let's say for the sake of argument, M1, then you would say 10 miles around M1, and it will find you all of the consumers in that area. I actually believe doing a radius is quite a poor way of profiling an area, but if you want to do it that way, you can. I would advise you to do another way, which is to select the postcodes here. Now I'm just going to imagine you're in Durham just because I happen to live in Durham and I happen to have an office in Durham, so it's quite easy for me to know that area. But you can select every single postcode in the whole country. I'm just going to show you Durham for the sake of argument. Now you've got two options. You can either pick just DH, so all of the Durham postcodes. So I'm a Durham based business, I'm in the centre of Durham and I want to target everybody in the surrounding area of County Durham. I would click on that. Or I might decide, actually I just want DH1 because I'm a very local business. So I'll just select DH1. Or of course you could have DH1, DH2 and maybe DH 8 and 9 because that's your surrounding area. Obviously if you know Durham you know exactly what these postcodes mean, and you can do this for all the areas. So we'll go down here to Blackpool and you can open up Blackpool and there's all the different postcode areas in Blackpool or Glasgow or wherever. So you get the point. So two options when you're trying to say which customers would I want to target. Number one, in a radius of your area. So take probably your office or your shop or your restaurant or whatever you happen to have as a business and take that area. So say your postcode is DH1, you'll take DH1 and a radius. You can do that. I don't recommend that, as I say. I think it's a bit lazy and I don't think it's precise, because to use my Durham example, you might know that all the Durham postcodes are good apart from this one here, DH8 and 9, which are Concert and Stanley. I might take those out because I know from local knowledge, profiling my own customers, but we get lots of customers from central Durham and Chesterley Street and Hortonley Spring and the wider sort of southeast Durham, but we don't get anybody from Concert and Stanley because for whatever reason. You will know this. Every business I've ever worked with has had these kind of sweet spots in their targeting, so they know if it's just a certain area. I would spend some time figuring out who are the best postcodes for you. Of course, if you keep your customer addresses on your customer database, which of course you should be doing, there's no excuse for not doing that, you can profile it by simply running off a search and saying, right, I want everybody in all these postcode areas, and then filter out the ones and twos, look for the general trends, and then that's what makes up your postcode area. Or maybe you want to target a very particular area. Maybe you are doing a demonstration in Darlington town centre this weekend. You're a car dealership and you're going out to Darlington to do some kind of meet and greet. So you want the people just in very central Darlington. You could just pick that postcode area there, as I'm doing now, and you could just decide to target that area. So that's how it works. And as I say, it's very powerful in the way you can do this. Of course, you might be national, which is fine. You just select all of them. But even if you're national, you very often you don't want to target absolutely everybody. There might be certain areas that just don't work as well. You might be a national company, but you maybe don't do very well in, I don't know, the southwest or something. You will know this. I'm just using examples. But step number one in building your list is simply to select your postcode area. Simple, but it can catch you out if you don't do your research properly. And for the sake of our little experiment here, I'm going to remove these other random ones. In fact, I'll remove all of them. And I'm actually remove all. Yes, I'd like to remove all. I'm going to have a little bit more fun by just selecting the whole of the northeast, because then it might be more interesting for you to see the numbers, because I'm going to show you some real searches. So we're going to go for the whole northeast, which is DH for Durham, DL, it's NE for Newcastle, and then SR, and then TS for Cleveland. So there we are. So we've got the whole of the northeast postcodes, just because I happen to live in the northeast. So if you're listening to this somewhere else in the country, as I know lots of you are, select your own postcode areas. So I've selected the northeast just so we can have a bit of a play around with this. So we have our postcode area. So we want everybody that falls into our target market in that area. Everybody who lives in the northeast, we want to get them. Brilliant. So we're going to scroll down and we're going to say, let's find these social groups. and you just drop down onto model data. Like I say, you don't need to be able to follow this on the screen because it's quite simple, but model data is one of the criteria you can click on, and then you'll find the Mosaic. You can see in this model data there's lots of other social modelling tools. I just happen to believe Mosaic is the best based on experience. That's the one I'd advise you use, but there's lots of other ones you'll see on this page. Remember last week as well I told you there was Mosaic 2003 and 2009. I happen to believe the 2009 still isn't as refined as it could be. That's my personal opinion, so I would go for 2003 for now. And let's just imagine from last week's video, I'm going to say it's blue collar enterprise and suburban comfort, just for the sake of argument. Remember I said there's the 11 social groups, I described them in great detail. I said find which ones closely match your target market, the people who are most likely to buy from your business. And we're going to imagine it's suburban comfort and blue collar enterprise. It could be any of those, it doesn't really matter. So that's what we've done. We select those couple of groups, and it's as simple as then just saying count. And all we've done, of course, is we've said we want all of the people in our target market, which we've profiled via the Mosaic, in these postcode areas. Now this has come out as 216,000, which is quite a lot, of course, but then we did have a massive area. Now you can find out as much information as you possibly want about these people by profiling it even more. You can find out what their employment status is, the gender, marital status, every bit of information you could possibly kind of want. And this is telling us it would be £5,000 for this list. Now when you look at that, that's not very much money at all, is it? You're paying £5,000 for a mailing list of everybody that falls into your social category in the whole of the North East, and you'd expect that to be a couple of £100,000. However, I actually believe that you can start to drill down into even more detail. So we're going to go back to build our list, and we're going to start to have a little bit more fun with this. We're going to say, well, yes, we want everybody in the North East, which is a huge area, just falling into our social groups for Mosaic, so that's what we've done. However, we want to start to drill down into a little bit more detail because we know more about our target market. Now, the list I'm about to build, I don't imagine anyone in the world would ever need this list, because I'm going to show you all of the different options that you can play around with. But I'm going to say you're drilling down even more into who your target market is. So contact type. Let's say we only want the household head, the head of a household. We only want the decision maker. So that's the person who makes the decisions, one would presume. So maybe we're selling something to the household. So we're drilling down even more just to say we just want the person, the contact, the main contact. Now the next band which we can do is estimated age band. And let's say we know that only people who are 25 to 34 buy our product. So we only want the decision maker and someone 25 to 34. Gender, we only want women. And then we're going to say that we only want married people, because our product, we know that our target market is married. Of course, this is all about that profiling of your target market. Like I said, you need to look at your own company and do the 80-20 analysis I explained a couple of videos ago, where you drill down and you start to do all of the numbers. And you say, well, let's have a look at what they look like. Who are our very best customers, the 20% that account for 80% of your business? Let's look what they're like. So they might be the head of a household who are female, between 25 and 34, etc, etc. Do you see how that's what you're doing with this? And also you've got to make some assumptions, and you've got to be bold. There's no point saying with this that I want everybody. Everybody could be a customer. I've explored that topic so many times. You need a list small enough for you to make manageable. Now let's say that they're owner-occupier, because we could be selling furniture. In fact, we probably are building something furniture here if you look at this. Let's imagine it's a furniture shop. Head of household, yes. Age range, well, let's say it's kind of funky furniture for 25 to 34. Kind of, the next step up from IKEA, but not quite the kind of some fancy stuff just yet. We know women tend to buy more furniture than men. That's just a fact. We're going to say they're married because it's more maybe stuff who couples who are just looking to start a family. So we're building a picture of a business here. So they've got to own a home, because you don't want nice furniture for for a rented home. And then this one is estimated household income. Well, we don't want people who are earning less than, I'm going to say, less than 10,000 we don't want, because they probably couldn't afford our nice furniture. So we're going to say from 10,000 to 30,000. And then let's say we say 30,000 to 60,000, but over 60,000 we imagine that they've got more money and they're not going to come to our shop because we're a middle range furniture store, this imaginary business I've just made up. So we know that people over 60k, they go to a nicer shop than ours. Okay, estimated property value. I don't believe that for our made-up furniture shop this is going to make much of a difference, but let's just imagine we're going to say, well, you need a nice home, so we're going to go over 100,000, and let's say we're going to go up to, let's say up to 300k, because again, over 300k we're going to imagine is a bit too much of a nice house for our average furniture store. Employment status, we only want people who are employed full-time, because we imagine students and part-time people or retired people, they're not our target market. Financial stress. Okay, so we need to look at financial stress. I'm going to imagine that this isn't very important for our particular business, our furniture store. However, this is interesting, isn't it? Because this says how indebted they are. So if we have people with very low and medium financial stress, they're more likely to come to our business and, number one, be able to afford our prices, and number two, maybe not need a payment plan, etc, etc. So it depends what type of business you have. For our imaginary furniture store, I'm not going to select any of these boxes, but you could. And if you were trying to sell, let's say you were trying to sell nice yachts. Now, you always sell a yacht you essentially get a mortgage for a yacht, because it's almost an appreciating asset. It only depreciates an ever so slight amount. So you can get mortgages for yachts over several years. So if I'm a yacht store, I don't want people with very high financial stress because they'll fail the credit checks. So I'll try and court them to buy my yacht, and then we'll agree the deal, and then the finance company says no. So if you're the type of company that needs to offer finance, and it doesn't need to be a yacht store, it could be the other end, a mobile phone shop, but you don't want people who are very high stress because they'll probably get rejected, or there might be bad payers. You just end up having bounced direct debits, which is not what you want. So for our imaginary furniture store, which I've just kind of thought up, then we're not going to worry about this, but you could. And you see how with this, whilst I am talking about this imaginary store, you can see how this might happen and might be important for your business. Liquid assets. Well, for our furniture store, this isn't important. However, if I was a financial advisor and I wanted to sell people with decent assets, I don't know, a pension scheme or whatever financial advisors do, then I would be interested in saying that it was medium, high and very high liquid assets. Whereas if I was trying to get people as a financial advisor, people for their first mortgage, I'd probably be targeting people with the lower end because they don't have much in terms of liquid assets. I can tell you from previous experience of campaigns that the Northeast has very low liquid assets. So it's not the best one if you're northeastern based. If you're in certain areas, particularly the southeast, you'll get much more productive results on that one. Non-liquid assets, essentially a home and other assets, personal assets. Again, for a financial advisor or somebody like this might be important. For our furniture store it isn't, but I'm just trying to show you the range here. The next one says affluence. Now, isn't this interesting? This basically says from 00 to 19. It's the kind of the least affluent to the very affluent. So if you're looking for, say, the average consumer, you might be looking between 6 and 15, something like this. I actually believe that our income is a better measure. But for our furniture shop, we might want to say that it's, like I say, we'll say 6 to 15. But I actually think income's a better measure. Sometimes with these tools you can get several different measures for the same area, but sometimes you'll find that some work better than others. Residence type, I'm going to say that we only want people in detached and semi-detached homes because our furniture doesn't suit bungalows, flats or terraced. If you are, say, a conservatory salesman, well, it'd be pretty stupid trying to sell a conservatory to a flat, wouldn't it? because they obviously can't have a conservatory, or most flats can't have a conservatory. A second floor flat would struggle. The same with something like roofing. If you're, say, fixing people's roofs and you want to do some promotion, then again, flats would not be a sensible area. Whereas if you want to sell your landscaping services, then you can see how you might want nicer homes, because they're the people who might pay you some more. Length of residency. This is important for businesses like home improvement businesses. You can imagine how this might be really important because let's say it's in an area where there's lots of new builds and you are that landscaping business. You probably don't want people who've not been there more than 5 years, because they're probably an okay garden when they move in. You might want it, once it starts to get a bit of a mess. I don't know, you will be able to tell me more about your own business if you fell into that category. But for some people this is an interesting measure. Not for our furniture store. The next one is households with children. Obviously this is brilliant because let's imagine you are a children's holiday provider. So you would say, well, we're based in Durham and we want all of the households that meet our other criteria, like they've got enough money, etc., etc., with children. Now, what would be the point in targeting people without children? It would make no sense, wouldn't it? Because that's your product. I'm saying for our furniture store it's not important because we said it was either people with a family or preparing for a family. So I'm not going to tick that, but you can see for some businesses that would be crucially important. Household type. This is where it starts to go into even more detail. So it will be families, extended family, extended households, pseudo family, single male, single female. Now, for our imaginary furniture store, it's not important. But if you're selling a product which single men buy, or men in general buy, then you could look at this. You could easily be a business. I'm going to be a bit facetious here and imagine that you're trying to promote an online dating agency just because it's an easy example, and you want to do it via direct mail. Then you could just target the people with single males and single females. See the power of this if you're that type of business. Now I'm going through so many different options here, and you will find for your business one of these will just be jumping off the page as an incredible opportunity. As I say, if you are this dating agency and you only want single people, well, fantastic. But you probably didn't believe you could get a list where you could just say, I want all of the single people. The next one is council tax band. Now this is interesting for certain businesses because it tells you, number one, the size of a household. So again, to use our kind of garden landscaping business, this might be useful because it tells you the type of house, and you might know you do well with certain sizes of houses, not too small, not too large, or whatever. Now also, let's imagine you're one of these companies that helps people to get council tax rebates. There are lots of these companies around where the council has wrongly categorised where your house is. So you might happen to know that in DH6, a lot of the ones that were classified as Bs should have been Cs or Ds, and you know this information because it's your area of expertise. So you could just say, I want everyone in DH6 who's living in a B, because it actually could be categorised as a C or D, and we could get a rebate and we keep the fees. These are no-win, no-fee type people. So if you are that type of business, you can see the advantage of this. For our furniture store, again, I don't think it's important. This is an interesting one. Outstanding estimated kind of mortgage value. So basically how much is outstanding on the mortgage. Now, for a mortgage broker, this might be important. Let's say you've opened a new mortgage broker shop in the centre of Newcastle, and you say, well, I want everybody with, it might be a large mortgage. We've got here £100,000 or more because you want to stick with them for a long time. One of the other categories is less than 20k. Well, they're no good to you unless you want to convert them from mortgage finalisation to some sort of investment scheme. So you say, well, the £1,500 you were paying for your mortgage this month, now that it's been paid off, you can put into an investment or whatever. Whatever happens to be your target for your business, whatever you're selling people, this would make sense. For our furniture store, I don't think this is important because it doesn't affect people's buying behaviour. Now the next one says address, whether it's a small business address or a home office. Basically this means that a business is being run from this address. Very interesting information. So we are a furniture store in our imaginary example, but let's imagine that we actually sold some furniture which would be brilliant for home offices. We could just say, I want everybody with a home office in the northeast because I want to sell them our great home office furniture. For us it's not particularly important, so we'll go for any because we don't mind if we're running a small business from home. That's okay. The model data was when we looked at the mosaic and we looked at our particular groups. So we'll drop that down. This is going to drill this down to a couple of thousand because we've been so incredibly precise. We want, what was it, a younger female who owns a home, a certain type of home, not too small, not too large, in a reasonably middle income bracket in these postcode areas. So we've been so incredibly precise that we know that when we communicate with these people, as I say, via email, via direct mail, via telephone, a direct contact method, when we send them some promotional material, we know that every single mailer or phone call or email is going to exactly the right person, somebody who we know is so likely to buy. So I'm going to press count, and I think we're going to be a couple of thousand. Let's have a look. Well, 1,630, isn't that incredible? So we've gone from 216,000 to just under 2,000, or more like 1,500. So we've now got 1,500 people who have got a red flashing light above their head. They are so incredibly targeted. Now, I probably targeted this too much, and maybe about this size isn't, you might be expecting to mail 5, 10, 15, 20,000, it doesn't really matter. But I always say that the number of people you're mailing is an irrelevance. What's important is the quality of the people you're mailing. And I would rather mail 1,600, even though it's not a huge number, of people who are so likely to buy than 10,000 people just because they live in a certain type of area, and that's as good as I could get. I would rather say, well, let's go out there and find everybody in our area who looks just like our best customers, and we'll just talk to those people. And in fact, you probably get much better results sending this 1,600, 4, 5, 6 mailers over a year than you would sending to a list that's 4, 5, 6 times the size that number of times a year. So that's what we've done. It took us no time at all. We looked last week at the social groups that we wanted, and then we actually decided that we wanted to build a list on the basis of their different criteria in these areas, and then we've got it. Now, you don't need to use those social groups, by the way. I decided to show you those last week because I find they're one of the most effective, but you could just forget social groups and you could just go through that profiling tool that we've just gone through and just say, no, it's actually all the women with children on a reasonable income in this area because we've opened a new nursery or whatever. And you might not say a social group is important. I generally find the social groups do help, but I've used different examples of different types of businesses just to give you a flavour for it. But do you see how you can take an area as big as the North East and end up with just 1,600 people you want to talk to? What do you do next? Well, I'm going to pick this up in next week's video in terms of what I would do with this list. But for now, I'll just tell you how much it would cost and what you would get. Using this selector base, that, as I say, I use them and they're very good. They're a pretty good price and it's pretty good quality data. There are other providers out there, but this is the one that I personally use. It would cost you £200, £201.60 to buy this list. Now, would you be willing to spend £201 to get 1,630 names of all these people that look perfectly like your target market? Well, it's a tiny amount of money, isn't it? You would buy this, and then basically what happens is Selectabase or your list broker will send you the list of this 1,630 people. And in next week's video, we will look at what you'll do with this list. Once you've got this information, what you do with it, how you communicate with them, the best marketing campaigns, the frequency, what you should say, how you should do it. But for now, you've seen the process. As I say, I don't particularly expect that you've been able to see everything on the screen because it's a small video, and that's not really the purpose. This is not a tutorial. If you start using the Selectabase or whatever profiling tool you want to use and you're struggling, then contact me and I can help you. We could get somebody to give you some one-to-one support or whatever. But it's quite obvious when you start to use it, and it's quite easy. I just want to introduce you to the idea that mass marketing is just so ineffective, and you can see from our imaginary furniture shop that we can find 1,630 people who are all identically like our perfect customer, and they're exactly the sort of people we want to be talking to. Again, as I said in the beginning, this is business to consumer, but keep watching this if you're a business-to-business organisation. We're going to be looking at how you profile businesses in a similar fashion in a future video in this series. But the process is important. Getting your mindset from mass market to very, 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 very closely profiled is important. Anyway, that's probably enough for me for this video. I probably talked longer than I intended to, but I wanted to give you the full breadth of what's possible. So thank you very much for listening. I hope it's been helpful. Any questions, as always, drop a line or give one of the people in the office a call, and we'll be happy to help. But you'll hear from me again in a week's time. Between now and then, have a fantastic time in business. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.